It started with the singing. Not a scream, not a howl, not even the usual snap of a twig in the dark. Just a soft voice drifting across Stillwater Lake, around midnight, clear and haunting, like a lullaby sung through cupped hands. We weren't drunk, and we hadn't been telling ghost stories. No setup, no jokes. Just four of us in folding chairs, fire crackling low, marshmallows melting off bent skewers. Then the wind shifted, and we heard her. A girl's voice. High, delicate, echoing over the water in a way that made it hard to tell where it came from. But it was definitely from across the lake. That was the first problem. Because there's nothing across Stillwater Lake anymore. Just broken tree lines, crumbling piers, and the charred ruins of Camp Red Pines, shut down for good after that incident in the 80s. We'd passed the signs on our hike in. No access. Grounds condemned. Camp Red Pines permanently closed. So, when Sam turned his head slowly and said, "Please tell me that's one of you," none of us could. Because the voice was coming from the other side. Not close. Not nearby. Directly across the water. The fire dimmed without anyone touching it. The song floated in again, this time clearer. Row me back, the lake runs cold. The oars are lost, the boat's grown old. I felt the hairs rise on my arms. Cassie stood up. Nope. This is some Blair Witch crap. Who plays dress up in abandoned ruins just to creep people out? I looked at Sam. Could be kids on a dare. He shook his head. It's Wednesday. He was right. No one hikes out to condemned property on a school night, especially not across water they'd need a boat to cross. And if they did, they wouldn't be singing the same line twice. Because it looped. Again and again. Row me back, the lake runs cold. And then it just stopped. No echo. No footfalls. No splash of a canoe or whisper of wind. Just silence. Then, as we sat frozen around the fire, the water rippled outward. A perfect circle expanding from the far bank, like something had entered the lake. But nothing broke the surface. We stayed up another hour. No more singing. Just the soft churn of water and our own unease stretching between us like fog. When we finally crawled into our tents, no one spoke. And when we woke up the next morning, there were wet footprints leading from the shore straight to our fire pit. Bare, small, human, and none of ours. Cassie was the first to see them. She let out this low, breathless, "Guys?" Not panicked, not playful, just off. That kind of voice you use when your brain hasn't caught up to what your eyes are seeing yet. We stumbled out of our tents, still half asleep, expecting a raccoon, maybe a snake near the gear. But what we saw was worse. At the edge of the lake, neatly laid out on a flat rock like someone was preparing for swim class, were a pair of clothes. Not dirty. Not old. Dry. Folded. Perfect. A one-piece bathing suit, navy blue, with a tiny stitched patch above the hip that read, "Camp Red Pines. Junior Cabin." Beside it, white socks rolled tight, canvas shorts, and a small yellow shirt with the number 7 in faded red print. Sam didn't move. "That wasn't there last night." "No," I said. "We walked right past that rock. That spot was underwater." He pointed. "Look again." And he was right. The waterline had receded. Maybe a foot, maybe more. Like the lake had inhaled overnight. And the rock, once submerged, was now dry and exposed, cradling those clothes like they'd never been touched by water at all. Cassie stepped toward them, hesitating. What kind of psychopath leaves clothes like this? That's when we saw the footprints, leading from the rock. Small, bare, slightly angled inward. They trailed away from the lake in the damp earth, up the hill and straight into our campsite. They stopped between our tents, dead center. Just stopped. No circling, no turns, no smudging. Like whoever left them had stood perfectly still in the dark and watched us sleep. We looked at each other. None of us said it, but we were all thinking the same thing. The singer. I walked down to the rock, half hoping the clothes would vanish as I got closer, like they were some trick of the light or collective hallucination. But they didn't vanish. The socks were warm from the sun. The bathing suit still smelled faintly of detergent. I reached down and stopped, because stitched into the inside collar of the yellow shirt was a name. Elise D. Sam whispered, "Isn't that the girl who drowned?" Cassie blinked. "What?" He swallowed. "Yeah. The story, the kid who got caught under the swim dock. Elise something. My uncle told me. That's why they closed the camp. No one ever found her body," I added. We all stood there, watching the lake. The water had stopped moving, like it was listening. Cassie backed away. "We're leaving. Screw this." But none of us moved, because down by the water's edge, the rock was wet again. The water had crept back up, just enough to touch the hem of the shirt, like it was taking her back. We almost left. Cassie had packed her things, shoved them into her pack like she didn't care what ripped, and stood with her arms crossed, facing the trailhead like it was a lifeline. Sam lingered by the fire, eyes locked on the lake. I tried to act like I wasn't shaken, but I kept glancing at that spot by the shoreline, where the folded clothes had been. Except now they weren't. The water was higher again, lapping the rock. The clothes were gone. Not taken, gone. No dragging marks. No soggy remnants. Just a perfectly smooth surface, like nothing had ever been there. But we didn't leave, because James came back from his morning hike looking like he'd seen a ghost. He wasn't on edge, he was smiling. Confused, yeah, but smiling like he'd just seen something incredible. "There's a pier across the lake," he said. Cassie blinked. "No. There's not. I just saw it," he told her, shaking his head like he was trying to correct a math problem. "It's weathered, real old. Broken in the middle. But there's a girl standing at the edge of it." Sam stood up. "What girl?" She waved at me. The smile slid off his face then, like the memory caught up to the weight of what he'd seen. She was wearing a yellow shirt. I think it had a number on it. 7, maybe. My stomach dropped. "That shirt's gone," Cassie muttered. James looked from face to face. "Wait. What shirt?" So we told him. About the footprints. About the folded clothes. About Elise D. His hands started shaking. No, this girl was real," he said. She was smiling. Not ghost-like, not creepy. Like a normal kid. She looked about 14. Just waving. Cassie was done. "You're telling me there's a pier on the opposite shore. A girl who fits the description of a drowned camper. Wearing a shirt that literally disappeared into the lake 2 hours ago." "She waved," James whispered. "She waved like she knew me." We all turned toward the far shoreline. Just trees. No structure. No dock. No movement. Nothing but water and pines. Sam raised his phone and zoomed in. Still nothing. "No pier," he said. James insisted. "It was there." I asked, "How far did you go? Could you show us?" But the look on his face changed again, hard to describe, like the air inside him deflated. I don't remember." "What do you mean?" "I was walking the ridge trail. There's no clear view from there. Then suddenly I was down at the lake. I don't remember climbing down." Cassie grabbed her pack. "We're leaving. Now." But as we started gathering our gear, James stopped and turned to us. "She waved goodbye that second time." "What second time?" I asked. "When I turned around to leave." He paused. "And then she stepped backward." "Into the water?" He nodded. "No splash. Just gone." We hiked out by noon. Packed fast. Left our trash. Didn't even clean the fire ring. No one wanted to say it out loud, but we all felt it. That building pressure behind our eyes and in our chest, like if we stayed one more night, we wouldn't be the ones walking out. We'd make it halfway back to the lot, maybe less, before someone noticed we were singing. The same damn lullaby. Cassie was already ahead on the trail, white-knuckling her walking stick, when Sam stopped cold. He was staring at the small orange box clipped to the back of his pack, our emergency weather radio. It wasn't supposed to be on. We'd turned it off the night before. But now the tiny speaker was crackling, soft static at first, then something underneath it. A melody. Slow. Familiar. Row me back, the lake runs cold. I felt my whole body go rigid. Sam unhooked it and turned the dial frantically. This shouldn't be picking up music, he said. It's NOAA weather alerts. No other channels. But the song kept playing. Faint. Like it was being broadcast through the static. He shut it off. The music didn't stop. The speaker was dark, the power switch flicked down, but the melody kept playing like it had nowhere else to go. Like the radio wasn't the source. Just a vessel. Cassie came back up the trail. What are you waiting for? Sam showed her. She didn't scream. Didn't panic. She just stared at the radio for a second, then dropped her pack and pulled out the laminated emergency contact sheet we kept with the gear. Someone write it down. What? The melody. The words. Write it down and say you heard it. Make it real. I took a step back. Why would we do that? Her face was pale. Because whatever this is, it wants permanence. That's why it's leaving clothes, photos, names. It wants us to record it. Put it down in ink. James finally spoke again. Maybe that's why the girl waved. She wasn't haunting us. She was presenting herself. Inviting us to document her? I asked. He nodded. Like she needs someone new to sing it. I checked my phone, 0 bars. And then the music stopped. No fade. No cutoff. Just total silence. We all stared at the radio. It was still off. Still dead. But now something was scratched into the back casing. Letters that hadn't been there before. Elise. Just that. Carved shallow and fast. Cassie dropped it like it burned her. The silence felt heavier than the music. Then we heard something even worse. From somewhere deep in the trees behind us. Row me back, the lake runs cold. No speaker. No radio. A voice. And it wasn't coming from the lake this time. It was coming from the trail we just left. We didn't run. We should have, but we didn't. Instead, we turned, 4 heads pivoting in unison toward that voice echoing from behind us. It wasn't the lake anymore. It was coming from the woods, the side we came from. The girl's song was slower now, broken up by the trees and wind, but still exact. Still her. We pressed forward up the trail, away from the sound. No one spoke. Every step felt like walking deeper into a mouth that wasn't ours to enter. James kept muttering to himself, "There's no pier, there's no pier," but his hands were shaking like he half believed he'd still find one if he just looked long enough. We crested a small rise and spotted a rusted-out storage shed maybe 40 feet off the trail. None of us remembered it from the hike in. Cassie pointed. That was boarded up last night. She was right. We all saw the fresh pry marks on the frame. The wood was splintered. A bent crowbar, old, rust-pocked but recently used, lay nearby in the dirt. The door hung slightly open. Inside, it smelled like mold and earth and paper left too long in the damp. Piled against the wall were the usual signs of abandoned camps: folding chairs, rusted bed frames, a dusty megaphone. But in the middle of the floor, lit perfectly through a gap in the corrugated roof, sat a black vinyl music binder. Too clean. Too dry, despite the water pooling around it. It hadn't been there long. Cassie crouched beside it. The gold lettering on the front read, Camp Red Pines. Choral Book Cabin Song Leaders. Summer Session, a 1989. She opened it slowly. The inside was dry at first. Typed lyrics. Sheet music. Handwritten notes about key changes and tempo. Old ink, neat cursive. Then, 10 pages in, the binder was soaked. From the center outward. Waterlogged, warped, bloated like it had been sitting underwater for decades, but only from one specific spot. She flipped one more page and gasped. The name Elise D. was written in pencil at the top of a song titled Cold Oars. Underneath the title, in different handwriting, Solo Evening Rehearsal, Final Performance, July 13th. Cassie looked up. What date is it today? I checked my watch. July 13th. The exact date. James turned pale. Wait, if that binder's real, and that performance was scheduled for tonight. Then we heard it again. Row me back, the lake runs cold. But now it wasn't just one voice. It was many. Dozens. A full choir. Coming from the direction of the lake. Rising like a warning. Or maybe a call. Cassie slammed the binder shut and stood up fast. I think tonight's her final performance, she said. And we're the audience. It was Sam. None of us noticed it at first, just a soft hum coming from behind us on the trail. Cassie was leading, binder tucked under her arm like a cursed relic. James and I kept glancing back toward the lake, that chorus still echoing faintly through the trees. And then Sam started humming. Row me back, the lake runs cold. His voice was quiet but pitch perfect. Too perfect. It was the exact tone of the girl's voice. Not similar, identical. Like a playback. Cassie froze. Stop that. Sam didn't even blink. He just kept walking, eyes forward, lips barely moving. The oars are lost, the boat's grown old. James stepped in front of him. Dude. Sam. Look at me. Sam stopped. Still humming. Then the hum dropped out, and his lips parted just slightly. And he spoke. But it wasn't Sam's voice. It was higher. Younger. Female. Laced with a sadness that wasn't his to carry. Miss Caldwell said I'd get to sing in front of everyone this time. I practiced all week. We all stepped back. Cassie dropped the binder. But it rained. And we weren't supposed to swim after dinner. And the dock was wet and I slipped and His mouth stopped. His eyes darted like he was waking up from a blackout. What? He mumbled. Why are you all staring at me? You don't remember? Cassie asked. Remember what? You were talking like someone else. A girl. About singing. He looked like we'd told him he'd grown wings. That's not funny. No one's joking. He looked down, saw the binder at his feet, and turned white. I didn't touch that. I don't even know that song. Cassie didn't respond. She just backed away and picked up the binder, holding it like it might burn her fingers. We stood in silence for a long moment. Then Sam whispered, I don't want to be in this anymore. What does that mean? I asked. I don't want to be part of it. This isn't a story I walk away from with some weird tale to tell. It's choosing us, taking pieces, one at a time. Cassie looked up the trail. We're almost to the lot. We finish the hike. Then we drive. Then we burn this thing. She shook the binder for emphasis. But as she did, a photo slipped out from between the pages. It wasn't old. It was glossy. It was us, the four of us standing by the campfire. From the night before. Same clothes. Same setup. Taken from the treeline. Only there was a fifth person in the shot. Barefoot. Wearing a yellow shirt. And she was looking straight at the camera. We made it back to the trailhead in under an hour, faster than any of us remembered it taking. Maybe we were moving quicker, maybe the path had changed. I wouldn't swear either way. But I do remember this. The parking lot was empty. No other cars. No ranger truck. No motion from the trees behind us. Just silence. And our car, windows fogged, doors locked, the driver's side mirror turned inward like something had brushed it hard. James didn't say a word. He popped the trunk, tossed his pack in, and got in the front seat. The rest of us followed suit. We didn't look back. Not until Sam opened the cooler. We'd left it closed. I remember that clearly. Duct-taped it shut because the latch was busted and raccoons were a problem in these parts. But the tape was peeled back, neatly, and resting on top of our half-melted ice packs, untouched by the damp, was a printed piece of paper. Full color, crisp, too new to have survived an abandoned trail or the inside of a cooler. Across the top, Camp Red Pines, daily rotation. Below that, Thursday, July 13th, 1989. 6:30 a.m. Wake-up bell. 7 a.m. Morning swim, lake roster 2. 9 a.m. Choral practice, cabin leaders. 11:30 a.m. Counselor briefing. 1 p.m. Swim practice, soloist, Elise D. 6 p.m. Dinner. 7:30 p.m. – final performance. 8:30 p.m. – lights out. 9 p.m. – roll call final. At the bottom was a footer. Rotation verified by Senior Counselor W. Henley. Cassie muttered, "That's today." I was already flipping through my phone's calendar. "No, it's Thursday, but this says 1989. Sam pointed to the second line. "Lake roster 2. That's 4 campers. And a soloist," Cassie said. We all looked at the final entry. Roll call, final. James leaned over the paper. "Who's W. Henley?" None of us knew. But when we looked around, we saw something else had changed. On the side of the cooler, just above the handle, someone had drawn with red marker, "2B." We stared at it. It hadn't been there earlier. And none of us were cabin 2B. Cassie said what none of us wanted to admit. "That's our assignment." James was still staring at the schedule. "What happens if we skip it?" Cassie answered without looking. "Then roll call's not complete." Sam folded the schedule, hands trembling. "We need to go. Right now." We all piled into the car. Cassie turned the key. The engine stalled. Then, on the dash, a tiny speaker clicked. And through the speakers we heard a voice. A soft one. Familiar. "Row me back, the lake runs cold." We drove for 20 minutes before anyone said a word. The voice on the radio had cut out the second the wheels hit pavement. No static. No goodbye. Just that last lingering note of the melody dissolving into air. None of us dared turn it back on. Cassie broke the silence. "We're not going home yet." Sam looked over. "What are you talking about?" "I mean it. We don't drive home and pretend this was just some weird campfire story. We go to the ranger station. We tell someone what we saw." James laughed bitter. "Tell them what?" "A girl sang us into a schedule from 1989. Cassie didn't answer. We pulled into a roadside gas station a few towns out. Bought coffee. Stretched. No one said much. I half hoped someone would decide to just call it, go our separate ways and never speak again. But no one did. We made a plan. Sleep at a roadside lodge, regroup in the morning, and call the park service if the feeling still hadn't worn off. Just one night, we told ourselves. We'd rest, clear our heads. It was the worst night of my life. We each got separate rooms. I unpacked nothing. Didn't even shower. Just crawled into bed and stared at the ceiling until sleep dragged me under. But sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up freezing. Not cold, wet. The bed was soaked. Not the sheet. The mattress. Like water had seeped up from inside it. I sat up fast. The lights wouldn't turn on. The TV flickered, then glowed pale blue. A humming noise filled the room, low at first, then unmistakable. "Row me back, the lake runs cold." I grabbed my stuff and ran. The others were already outside. James was pale, barefoot, carrying only his keys. Sam had blood on his wrist from smashing his room mirror. Cassie just stood still, arms around her chest, eyes wide. "It happened to all of us," she whispered. "We didn't ask for details. We just got in the car and drove again. By sunrise, we were pulling into a public camping area off a different trail. No connection to Red Pines, miles away. Cassie insisted we reset. One more night. Not near the lake. Different location. Just to prove it was behind us. We agreed. And that was our second mistake. We set up 3 tents on dry ground. No music. No stories. No food left out. We slept early. This time, when we woke up, the tents had moved. We'd pitched them in a circle. But now they were in rows. Labeled. Each tent had a paper sign pinned to the front. 2B counselor. 2B camper. 2B camper. 2B soloist. And next to the fire pit sat a new tent. A 5th one. Still zipped. Still sealed. We hadn't packed a 5th tent. No one touched the 5th tent. We circled it in silence like it might open on its own if we looked away. But the flap stayed zipped. Nothing moved. Not a rustle, not a shadow. Just that faint smell of lake water where there shouldn't have been any. Cassie broke the spell first. "I didn't pack that." I swear on my life. I believe you, I said. It didn't matter. Belief wasn't protection anymore. We knew that much. James stepped forward and yanked the paper sign off his own tent. Crumpled it. They want a show. They want us to play parts. Sam gestured to the fifth tent. So who's in there now? No one answered. We packed fast. Didn't even bother rolling the sleeping bags. Just shoved everything into the car. None of us spoke more than a few words. Everything we did felt automatic, like we were reacting to instructions we couldn't see. That's probably why we didn't notice Cassie slipping away. One moment she was stuffing her bag into the back seat. The next, silence. And then, splash. We turned. She was walking into the lake. Not running. Not crying. Just walking. The water rippled around her knees, then her hips, then her ribs. None of us moved. Her eyes weren't glazed. She wasn't hypnotized. She looked calm. Peaceful. But she didn't look at us. Not once. She just kept going. And then, without a splash, she disappeared beneath the surface. Gone. No hand reaching back. No scream. The lake swallowed her whole. We sprinted to the shoreline, shouting her name. Nothing. No bubbles. No ripples. Just glass-smooth water and our own voices echoing back. I saw something glinting in the dirt. Shoes. Cassie's trail shoes. Dry. Laced neatly, side by side. And next to them, placed just as carefully, a pair of old water shoes. Child-sized. Yellow. Faded red stars across the toes. I knelt down. Touched them. Still warm. Sam whispered, "That's what they want." James stared at the lake. What? Substitution. One in, one out. We looked around. The fifth tent was still zipped shut. And now? There were 4 of us again. We didn't talk the whole drive back. No music. No phone scrolling. Not even the weather app. Just 4 seats, 3 people, and one empty space behind us that none of us dared look at too long. Cassie was gone. Not missing, gone. We didn't tell the police. What could we say? That she walked into a lake that hadn't been there the day before and left her shoes on the shore beside a pair that hadn't existed for 30 years? We each went home. James moved back into his parents' house 3 towns over. Sam left his job. I tried to pretend I was fine, kept the same routine, smiled through the cracks. But nothing settled. Because the lake wasn't done with us. 2 weeks after we got home, I found it. Folded neatly in my mailbox. Not postmarked. Not stamped. Just sitting there. A flyer. Camp Red Pines. Where memories are made. Seasonal brochure Session 2B. I didn't want to open it. But I did. Inside was a list of campers and counselors, sorted by cabin assignment. It was typed. Not old. Not water damaged. Clean. Too clean. Cabin 2B. Elise D. Soloist. Sam R. Counselor. James H. Camper. Me camper. Vacancy. That last word was in bold. Beneath the list, a handwritten note. Final performance rescheduled due to absence. Session continues until all names are present. Roll call begins again on July 13th. I checked the calendar. It was July 12th. The next morning, I drove to Sam's apartment. The door was open. Inside, nothing. No signs of packing. No mess. No note. Just his shoes by the door. And a yellow shirt folded on the bed. The number 7 stitched on the sleeve. I called James. He didn't pick up. But that afternoon, I got another flyer. This one slipped under my windshield at the grocery store. Same cabin list. Only now? All the names were checked off. Even mine. And next to vacancy, in red ink. Now filled. I turned the flyer over. On the back was a short set of lyrics, typed in bold, as if expecting me to sing along. Row me back, the lake runs cold. The oars are lost, the boat's grown old. But once you sing and take your seat, the list is full. The song's complete. I burned the paper. But the next morning? A package waited on my porch, wrapped in twine. No return address. Inside? A clipboard. Empty. Except for one line. Please take roll. And now for our next story. They told us there'd be 20 of us. 10 per cabin, 2 cabins per side, guys on the left, girls on the right. A classic summer camp layout, printed in cheerful block letters on the orientation sheet our parents got in the mail. Only now that brochure felt like a lie. Because I woke up to silence. Not quiet. Silence. No birds. No footstep. No creaking bunk slats or distant laughter. And when I sat up in bed, I saw it. Every other bunk in the cabin was still made. Neatly. Perfect corners. No duffel bags on the floor. No crumpled towels or half-zipped hoodies slung over the post. Just 10 untouched beds. Except mine. The fitted sheet on my mattress was wrinkled, the blanket twisted around my legs, and the pillow damp from sweat. But everything else? Pristine. I checked the clock above the door. 7:03 a.m. That was breakfast call, according to the counselor who checked me in yesterday, Mitch or Mike or something. He said they blew a conch shell from the mess hall. Classic tradition, he'd said. Wake-up call you can't miss. But now? No conch. No bells. No one yelling. I pulled on my shoes and opened the cabin door. Nothing but mist. Thick, unnatural fog crawled across the grass in waves, stretching into the trees like something alive. The trail leading to the mess hall was barely visible, like it had shrunk overnight. Still, I stepped outside. The moment my foot hit the ground, I noticed something else. No footprints. Not on the porch. Not in the dirt. Not in the wet grass that would have been crushed by 20 kids walking to breakfast. I looked back at the cabin. The nameplate above the door read, Cabin B2. Something about it scratched at my memory, like a story I'd overheard once but never fully listened to. I moved toward the trail, heart thudding harder with every step. Then I heard it. From somewhere out in the fog. Rise and shine, the trail's ahead. Get up now or sleep like the dead. A child's voice. Not a conch shell. Not a counselor. A song. I froze. The voice was close. Too close. But no one was there. Just mist and trees and the faint outline of the mess hall ahead. Another verse rolled through the air. Campers come and campers go. But cabin doors don't always close. I turned back. The cabin door I'd left open? Closed. I ran to it. Yanked the handle. Locked. From the inside. Then the voice whispered, closer this time, from just behind me. Your bunk's the only one that gets used anymore. I spun around. Nothing. Just fog curling at my knees. And then I saw it. A clipboard. Lying on the steps where I'd walked out. One name written in red. Bunk 6 checked in. The rest were blank. The mess hall should have been loud. That's the memory I held in my chest, even as I stepped closer to the wide, weather-stained building through fog so thick it moved like smoke. Summer camps are supposed to hum with noise. Clattering trays, forks on plates, kids shouting over who got more syrup. But this place? Dead quiet. I hesitated at the porch. The big double doors were propped open, swinging just slightly on their rusted hinges like they were waiting for me. The breeze wasn't strong enough to move them, but they rocked with a rhythm, almost like breathing. I stepped inside. The wooden floor groaned underfoot, echoing too loudly in the empty space. And there it was, the dining setup, perfect. Rows of picnic-style tables with matching benches. 20 settings. Plates white as bone. Cups gleaming with condensation. Forks and knives arranged like we were minutes from a counselor clapping their hands and yelling dig in. Only there was no food. No pancakes, no orange juice, no half-open cereal boxes with sugar trails behind them. Just waiting. Every place set untouched. Except for one. Near the end of the first table, a single fork was bent. Its tines twisted like it had been clenched too hard in a fist, and then dropped. I moved closer and saw something worse. My name was written in looping Sharpie on a place card beside the bent fork. Lucas, Bunk 6. I hadn't seen anyone write that. I hadn't even met anyone yet. The chair behind that spot? Still rocking. slowly, side to side. I reached out and stopped it. It pushed back. Not hard, barely a tap, but enough for me to know I hadn't touched it. I stepped back, and that's when I noticed the walls. Old photos lined the mess hall's wooden beams, black and white group shots, camp counselors standing behind rows of smiling kids. But every photo had the same issue. One kid's face was scratched out. Always the sixth from the left. Different group shots, different years, but the sixth kid was always ruined, cut out, blacked over, or peeled off the glossy print. In one of the older photos, I saw a kid that looked like me. Same curly hair, same ears that stuck out too far. But the face? Burned with a cigarette. Beneath that frame, a small metal plaque. Final year, cabin B2 roll call incomplete. The chair behind me creaked again. No wind. No motion. But now another place card sat beside mine. Camper 2, pending. My hands started to shake, because a drop of water fell from the rafters, onto the center of my plate. And I swear it looked like a tear. I left the mess hall behind me. Didn't run. Didn't sprint. Just walk. Because deep down I knew sprinting wouldn't help. Not here. The fog didn't clear. It just rearranged itself, curling around trees and buildings, always just thick enough to hide the horizon. I could only see 10 feet ahead, but I could feel the rest of the camp breathing beyond the mist, like it was waiting. My next stop was the counselor's cabin. It sat apart from the bunks, a bit elevated on a hill with a rotted deck and a crooked sign out front that read, "Staff only." The door creaked open like it had been expecting me. Inside was dim, just a single window and a hanging light bulb swaying slightly, though no one had touched it. 2 bunks lined the walls. One made, one bare. A green footlocker sat open at the foot of the made bed, filled with old wool socks and a whistle on a nylon lanyard. But what drew my attention was the desk. It was tidy, too tidy. Centered perfectly with a pen, a rusted flashlight, and a logbook. A thick one. Leather-bound. I opened it. Pages and pages of dates, notes, counselor rotations. All clean, handwritten. The last several years were blank. Then, tucked near the back. Session 2B, current year. Only one entry. One camper arrived. No others expected. Signed, W. Henley. I read it again. Once more. Because that wasn't a counselor I'd met. I didn't remember a roll call. No group photo. No other campers checking in. Just me. And that name, W. Henley, I'd seen it before. Not here. Somewhere else. And then I remembered. One of the stories I'd read online before I signed up. A local lore page full of pixelated images and sketchy tales about abandoned camp. Camp Red Pines. Session 2B. The same counselor name had been mentioned there. W. Henley, last on duty staff before permanent closure. Only it wasn't this camp. It was Red Pines. The one that drowned. A chill ran through me. I closed the logbook. But when I turned to leave, the made bed had changed. On the pillow lay a clipboard. And a new sheet. Session 2B roll call. Lucas, bunk 6 check. Camper 2. Camper 3. Counselor, Henley. Song leader, Elise D. Elise. That name again. I took a step back. My name was the only one checked. No one else had arrived. Except somehow, I knew they were coming. I just didn't know from where. The camp had a lake. I'd seen it on the map. Lake Redleaf, it was called, though no one had said that name out loud since I arrived. The trail to it was marked by faded signs, 2 of them nailed high on trees at the trailhead. Lake closed. No swimming. No exceptions. But the trail wasn't roped off. There was no gate, no warning tape, nothing to stop me. I don't know why I followed it. Curiosity, maybe. Or maybe it was the way the air felt heavier the closer I got. Like the camp wanted me to see it. Wanted me to understand. The fog parted halfway down the path. And then I saw the lake. Fill. Glass flat. A perfect mirror. Too perfect. Not a single ripple, even with the wind drifting over it. But the moment I stepped onto the dock, the water shifted. Not violently. Just a small disturbance in the center, like someone had slipped beneath the surface a few seconds earlier and hadn't come back up. Then the smell hit me. Faint. Familiar. Shampoo. Not lake rot. Not mud. Shampoo. And something sweeter, like conditioner or a perfume I couldn't quite name, one I hadn't smelled since I was a kid. That's when I saw the towel. It was draped neatly over a post at the edge of the dock. Clean. Dry. Folded in thirds, like it was waiting for someone to finish their swim. And on top of it sat a brush. Black plastic. Hair caught in the bristles. Long strands. Wet. I reached for it. Didn't know why. Then I heard it. Brush your hair and take your place. Look in the lake to see your face. I turned. No one. But the brush was still warm. And the water? It rippled again. Only this time something broke the surface. A hand. Pale. Slim. Delicate. Just reaching. Not flailing. Not drowning. Just reaching. I stepped back. And then the hand sank without a sound. Gone. I spun and ran. Didn't stop until I was off the dock and halfway up the trail. And even then I didn't breathe. Because the wind behind me carried a voice. Soft. Happy. Like a girl singing underwater. One is here, but more will come. The show begins when we reach the sum. I should have left. I'd packed. I'd even made it to the car. Keys in hand, engine still warm. But the wheels wouldn't turn. The path out? Gone. Not blocked, gone. Where the road had been that morning, there was now nothing but more trees. Tall, silent, uniform. Like the woods had folded inward and erased the exit. So I walked back. Not because I wanted to. Because I didn't know where else to go. And as I crossed back through the empty campgrounds, I heard it again. The song. Row me back, the lake runs cold. But now, it wasn't a solo voice. It was a group. A choir. And they weren't singing in the distance. They were in the cabin. I climbed the steps slowly, each one creaking beneath my weight. My hands shook as I pushed the door open. And that's when I saw them. The bunks were full. Every bed but mine. Dripping wet kids lay tucked under dry blankets, eyes closed, lips moving with the song. The oars are gone, the boat's grown old. The sheets beneath them were soaked, like they'd been pulled out of the lake and tucked in without ever drying off. Their hair hung down in slick rope. Skin pale, but not corpse pale. Just unfinished. Incomplete. One turned her head toward me. Eyes still closed. She smiled. Whispered, "You're the last." I stepped back into the hall. But my bed? Already turned down. Crisp white corners. A pillow embroidered with my name. Lucas, bunk 6. And on the nightstand beside it, one final clipboard. Only this one had every name checked off. Except mine. I picked up the pen. My hand hovered. And then I noticed the water. Pooling at my feet. Rising slowly. Coming from the center of the cabin. No leaks. No pipes. Just filling. And as it reached my ankles, the campers began to sit up, still humming. Still smiling. They didn't blink. They didn't speak. Just watched me. Waiting. The clipboard grew heavy in my hand. Water soaked the bottom edge. The pen twitched in my grip like someone else was guiding it. I didn't want to sign. I really didn't. But the lake was in the cabin now. It had come for me. And from somewhere deep in the rafters, a voice whispered one last line. You never left the lake. You just closed your eyes. The water reached my chest. The clipboard floated. And then? I took roll. And now for our last story. We were halfway through our first night when Jonah noticed it. We were sitting around the fire. Me, Jonah, Ray, and Calvin, passing around marshmallows and cheap whiskey, laughing louder than we should have been for how deep in the woods we were. Jonah stood up to take a leak, walked past the tents, then froze. Hey, he called over his shoulder. Which one's mine? What? Ray asked. Jonah turned, squinting at the line of domed tents behind us. Which tent is mine? There's 5. We laughed. Dude, I said, there's only 4 of us. Yeah, and 5 tents, he said. 1, 2, 3, 4. He pointed at the fifth one, off to the side, a little farther from the ring of trees. One we hadn't noticed before. We all stood up. It was the same brand and color as the ones we'd brought, army green with black mesh top. Same size. Same tie-down cords. But the weird part? It was zipped shut. Calvin frowned. You sure it wasn't there earlier? I set up this half, Ray said. That tent wasn't there. We walked over. There were no footprints around it. No gear. No name tags. No string lights. Just a closed zipper and a subtle bulge in the fabric, like someone was already inside. Jonah hesitated, then knelt down and knocked. No response. He looked up at us. You're seeing this, right? I nodded. Then he unzipped it. Slowly. Just enough to look inside. And I swear to God, there was a man. Lying inside. Middle-aged. Clean-shaven. Arms crossed over his chest like he was asleep in a coffin. He opened his eyes the second the zipper moved. Didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just smiled. I jumped back. Ray gasped. Calvin cursed. But Jonah? Jonah stared. Like he couldn't move. Hey man, Jonah said quietly. You okay? The man sat up. He didn't answer. Just kept smiling. Then he reached into the sleeping bag and pulled something out. A Polaroid. He held it out. Jonah didn't take it. So he dropped it on the tent floor and lay back down. Zipped the bag over his chest. And closed his eyes. Like he'd never been there to begin with. We didn't unzip the tent again. We just backed away. All four of us. Back to the fire. No one spoke for a long time. Then I picked up the Polaroid. It showed the four of us, me, Jonah, Ray, and Calvin, standing around the fire. Exactly like we were now. Same clothes. Same positions. Only in the photo, there was a fifth person. Standing just behind Jonah. Half in the shadows. Smiling. That night, none of us slept. We stayed up by the fire, pretending the Polaroid hadn't happened, pretending we hadn't seen a man in a zipped sleeping bag, pretending that maybe this was some sick prank, though deep down we all knew better. By morning, Calvin had had enough. I'm taking it down, he said. I don't care if it's some forest ranger or some crazy hiker. We didn't bring it, and it doesn't belong here. We followed him, mostly out of stubbornness and adrenaline. Ray stayed farther back. Jonah was quiet. He hadn't said a full sentence since the night before. The fifth tent still sat off to the side, zippered, like it had never been disturbed. No footprints around it. No sign of dew or weather. Just sitting there like it had been set down by the wind. Calvin grabbed one of the corner stakes and yanked it up. The fabric didn't even resist. He yanked the second one free, then the third. When he pulled the last corner loose, the entire tent sagged inward and collapsed, like any normal tent would. He smiled. Done. We went back to the campfire. Ate a cold breakfast. Tried to laugh it off. Then Jonah turned around and whispered, "What the hell?" The fifth tent was back. Fully standing. Fully staked. Zippered shut. Exactly where it had been. I ran to it. The ground was undisturbed. The same. Not muddy, not pressed. The stakes were sunk. Like someone had placed it again, carefully, methodically. Calvin ran over, furious. No. 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 He yanked the front zipper. Empty. No man. No sleeping bag. Just a single Polaroid lying in the center. We crowded around. This one? Showed us sleeping. All four of us, zipped into our tent. Only one tent in the image had a shadow outside the flap. The fifth tent's entrance. And the shadow? It was crouching. Watching. Jonah stepped back, hands on his head. We're not alone. Ray turned to me, eyes wide. I set up my tent next to you. But last night, when I peeked outside, it was facing the fire. I thought I just misremembered. I swallowed hard. We tore the fifth tent down again. Flattened it. Ripped the stakes out. Calvin burned the fabric in the fire pit. We watched it blacken, melt, and turn to ash. And for a while it felt final. But when we came back from the river that afternoon, there it was. Standing. Zip closed. Same exact spot. Like we'd never touched it. Jonah whispered what we were all thinking. I don't think it wants to be gone. We made a pact that night. No one unzipped a tent alone. No one walked off by themselves. And if the fifth tent reappeared again, we wouldn't touch it. We'd leave it alone and break camp at first light. That was the plan. But by morning, Jonah was gone. His tent was open, sleeping bag shoved halfway out the flap, pillow missing. At first, we thought maybe he'd gone to use the bathroom. We waited. 10 minutes. 20. Ray circled the trees, calling his name. Calvin checked the riverbank. Then I spotted it. Something curled at the edge of the clearing. Between two trees, half buried in pine needles and moss. A sleeping bag. But not Jonah's. It was a different style, navy blue canvas with faded yellow trim. Old. Like 1980s old. I walked to it slowly, my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my neck. The sleeping bag moved. I jumped. Then I realized it wasn't zipped. Just folded over. Inside was Jonah. Lying on his back, eyes open, blinking up at the tree canopy. Expression blank. He didn't flinch when I called his name. Didn't smile. Didn't sit up. Just whispered, "Did you hear them?" I crouched beside him. "What? Who?" He pointed to the trees. They were singing. Just behind the fire. But only while I was asleep. Calvin and Ray came running up behind me. We all stared. Jonah wasn't hurt. But he was shaking. He clutched the zipper like it had saved his life. "I didn't unzip my tent," he said. "I swear. I went to sleep. That's all." "Then how'd you end up out here?" Ray asked. He didn't answer. We helped him sit up, and that's when we noticed the Polaroid sticking out of the sleeping bag's inside pocket. Jonah pulled it free. This one was different. It didn't show the campsite. It showed the woods. Dark, blurry, overexposed. But in the center, clear as day, were three people. Me, Ray, and Calvin. Looking down at something on the ground. Something out of frame. The angle was high, like the photo had been taken from one of the trees. Jonah looked at the back. There was a note scribbled in red marker. "Now it's your turn to sleep outside." We didn't sleep after that. How could we? Jonah wouldn't go near his tent. He kept pacing around the fire, eyes twitching toward the woods every time a twig snapped. Ray sat cross-legged, flashlight beam fixed on the fifth tent. Calvin cleaned his knife over and over, like he expected something to crawl out of the dirt. Me? I checked our bags. That's when I saw them. 4 envelopes, lying inside my duffel, neatly stacked, each one with a name written across the front in perfect cursive. Jonah, Ray, Calvin, me. I called the others over. We opened them together. Each envelope held a single Polaroid. I pulled mine out first. In it, I was curled on my side in a tent, sleeping, mouth slightly open, flashlight still on beside me. Only it wasn't my tent. Wrong color. Wrong zipper line. Wrong gear behind my head. I checked the edges of the photo. Stamped in faded ink. Camp Red Pines, Session 2B. Ray's hands trembled as she pulled hers out. Same thing. She was asleep in a pale green tent. Her sleeping bag was a pattern she didn't own. Behind her, on the floor, was a clipboard. Checked names. Jonah refused to touch his envelope. "I don't need to see it," he said. "I already know what's in it." Calvin's photo showed him asleep in my tent. But he hadn't used my tent. None of us had switched. Each of us was being shown asleep in places we'd never been. "Maybe this is someone's prank," Ray said, trying to stay grounded. "Then where are the cameras?" I asked. "Where's the guy with the long lens? The motion detector? Someone would have had to unzip a tent, take a picture, and get out without us noticing." She didn't argue. Because it wasn't a prank. It was personal. Calvin tossed his photo into the fire. We watched it curl and blacken. But 5 minutes later, he found another one in his backpack. Same image. Only this time, he wasn't alone in the tent. In the shadows near the flap, there was someone kneeling. Half seen. Face obscured by a hood. Holding a clipboard. and just before Calvin crumpled it in his fist, I saw what was written across the bottom. Only one tent remains unclaimed. We turned as one toward the fifth tent. Still zipped. Still untouched. But now? Its fabric was wet, dripping like it had just been pulled from the lake. A new Polaroid was tucked into the zipper pull, face down. None of us dared pick it up. But we all knew. It wouldn't be blank. We waited out the night. No one slept. No one even closed their eyes. We sat by the dying fire, taking turns watching the tree line and the fifth tent. At some point, Jonah started humming, low, nervous, like he didn't know he was doing it. It was the same tune we'd heard in the woods. The same broken melody from the other photos. Just after dawn, Ray blinked hard and pointed. The fifth tent? Gone. No flattened canvas, no stakes, no ashes. Just pine needles where it used to stand. Like it had never been there at all. We looked at each other but didn't speak. There wasn't much to say anymore. We packed in silence. It didn't take long. We hadn't unpacked much to begin with. Every move felt mechanical, like we were being watched even now. Jonah stopped while stuffing his sleeping bag and pulled something from his jacket pocket. A Polaroid. Not one of the old ones. A new one. He turned it around. His face went pale. He handed it to me. I saw it immediately. It was from the night before, us four around the fire, looking drained, haunted, exhausted. But in the photo? There were 5 of us. One person stood slightly apart, face half-shadowed by the trees. A woman. I checked my own pack. Another Polaroid had been slipped between my clothes. Same shot. Slight variation. This time she was closer. Ray and Calvin found their copies too. Each version was a little different. Same scene. Same 5 people. Only the 5th figure kept getting clearer. Softer smile. Longer hair. A hand now resting on one of our shoulders. None of us remembered posing for them. None of us had stood still long enough. None of us remembered her. But she remembered us. There was a photo stuck inside Jonah's tent flap when we finally rolled it up. In it, we were all inside the 5th tent. Asleep. Stacked like books in zipped-up bags. 5 campers. Eyes closed. Peaceful. At the bottom, scrawled in red. Every tent must be filled. We left. Didn't speak for hours. Didn't take side roads or stop for snacks. Just kept driving, like distance could dilute whatever had followed us home. But 2 days later, I got another envelope. Inside were 5 new photos. 1 for each of us. And a 5th of someone I'd never seen. Male. Late 20s. New tent. New fire. Smiling mid-laugh. On the back of the photo was the same sentence. Every tent must be filled. And beneath it, smaller. Thank you for making room.